Okay, hello everybody and welcome to our discussion panel on the science of loyalty. I'm Jim Rudel. I'm the head of EMEA at Intuit Mailchimp, and we're going to be talking about the science of loyalty. So as marketers, we know that customer loyalty can be as important for growth as acquiring new customers. Why is that? Well, because customers tend to spend more money. They're less likely to be prized away by competing brands or organizations. And they also make a marketer's life easier because they can become passionate advocates of our brand or our organization. I'm joined today by a group of marketers from a diverse range of industries, and we're going to dive into these discussion topics in a minute. But firstly, some introductions. It'd be great to get to know you a little bit. Starting to my left, Joe.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having us. My name's Joe Gray. I'm the Senior Digital Marketing Manager at Nova Bay Pharmaceuticals. It's a pharmaceutical company based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I work on the eye care brand Avenova.
Okay, great to meet you.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again. I'm Marianne Pfeiffer. My company is 108 Degrees. I'm a Mailchimp Pro partner, and we serve clients in B2B, nonprofit, higher ed industries, as well as luxury brands.
Great. Good to see you again. We love our partners.
And I am Nick Puglia. I am the Digital Marketing Manager for Immersive Productions. We are the producers of Sleep No More, Speakeasy Magic, and our newer show Life and Trust out in New York City. And we create these immersive experiences that we've been lucky to be using Mailchimp for many, many years now.
Extremely lucky. Yes. Welcome, Nick. Thanks for joining us. So a few weeks ago, Mailchimp launched a couple of research pieces. The first one was the science of loyalty, which is a deep dive into the science of driving loyalty and trying to give some insights into the behavioral research that dictates why loyalty happens. And then secondly, the strategic loyalty playbook, which is a tool for marketers to bring to life the science. So how we can implement the understanding that we've gleaned from the research. So we're going to dive into those topics throughout the course of our discussion. But first, I would love to know, how does your organization define loyalty? Let's start with Nick.
Awesome. Yeah, the simple answer would be that our audience comes through the door and they attend, but we also look at it from a bigger picture of engagement and creation, because when they leave our experiences, we also want them to still be thinking about it. We want them to continue to engage with us, ask questions, and hopefully keep the conversations going.
Got it. Conversation of loyalty.
Yeah.
Understood. Marianne, what do you think?
So when we work with clients, we look at loyalty sort of in a spectrum, right? You have a customer, you have a satisfied customer, and then you're trying to move them from just being satisfied to being someone who's really an advocate for your brand. So for us, we look at the spectrum of where someone is or where your groups of customers are and how we can nudge them along that spectrum to make them advocates for your brand.
Got it. A spectrum of loyalty. Love that. That's amazing. Joe?
For us, we are a consumer packaged good, excuse me, and really for us, it's really all about just that repeat business. Mm-hmm. Our product is a monthly product. You have to buy it every single month. So for us, we do have those one-off buyers, but we've also got customers we've had for a decade. So really for us, loyalty is just finding those brand evangelicals that will kind of continue to sing the brand's praises, outside of the kind of echo chamber that we operate in, but really just kind of continuing to come back and back and back and buy.
Got it. So I'm going to stick with you, Joe. Knowing that, that's your definition of loyalty. How does that inform your loyalty strategy?
Really, it's all about just, I think for us, making sure that we have, again, just brand evangelicals. So we are making sure that we're meeting them where they're at. We're using everything that Mailchimp has offered to us. Making sure that we have a defined brand look in all of our emails, making sure that everything is cohesive, having a regular cadence, really just making sure that our audience is where we're meeting them. And vice versa. SMS has been a great tool. We've been able to launch that and kind of lean into it a little bit more. Our demographic tends to steer a little bit older, just the nature of our product. But again, there are those people that are using every single channel available. So we're kind of cross-referencing every single thing that we can get our hands on just to reach them, make sure that we're at the forefront of their minds, and just try and get in front of them.
Got it. Be there where they're at.
Yep.
That's something to take away, right? Great. Marianne, so there's a lot of discussion about the emotion behind loyalty in our research. And what it tells us is that loyalty isn't rational. It's deeply rooted in our instincts and our emotions. So how does that line up with your personal experience when it comes to the work that you do with your customers?
Right, so we work with nonprofits, and when we work with nonprofits, a lot of that work is very much emotionally driven, right? If you see a charity and you want to support that charity and they're putting out an ask, the reward you're going to get is that warm, fuzzy feeling inside. You know, maybe you'll get a hug from the founder at some point if you attend an event, but realistically, it's sort of that self-satisfaction of I did something good. But when we work with B2B brands, it's very different because the B2B buy is very rational, very logical. It's based on spend allocations and particular needs and features. However, we found that loyalty still has a play there because there are still humans behind the decision. There are still humans who are part of the sales process in most cases. And the relationship that is built between those humans is what can drive loyalty. It's what makes that person come back again because they know they'll get the needs met, they know that they'll get the questions answered, they know that the brand is there for them when they need something.
Got it. I love that. So you have a, let's say, a pragmatic sell when it comes to B2B, but it works because of the emotion behind the relationship, right?
Correct.
Yeah, perfect. Nick, we've referred to you previously as Mr. Emotion. So talk to us a little bit about how emotion drives your strategy.
Yeah, all of our experiences are immersive, but everyone uses that term on everything these days. And so what's beautiful is our stories, our experiences, our restaurants all have a sight, sound, touch, smells, and things that people just can connect to. And whether it's something of a sound that they've remembered from years ago that they've never heard, or a story that they've connected with years, and even some of our stories that are books that we used to read in high school, it really finds this moment for audiences to connect with, and everyone has a different reasoning, and it gives people a new opportunity to explore and just be in a new world. And it's beautiful to watch all these emotions all the time.
It is beautiful. Yeah. And brings a lot of meaning, I guess, to the work that you're doing, which must be really satisfying, right?
It's incredible because being in this world, we don't have many words spoken, and it's behind a mask for multiple of our shows. And so it creates a community of people who get to not have their identity taken advantage of or questioned. So we find that a lot of our audiences who may be neurodivergent or just want to find their own identity have this opportunity to explore and truly test their social interactions, emotional interactions, and have that freedom.
Amazing. Some of the other principles behind the drives of loyalty: reward, memory, emotional and social interaction. Nick, you had some interesting things to talk about when it comes to the concept of social reward. Do you want to talk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I think for us, it's really, again, our customers coming to us because they have a problem.
Sure.
I think the biggest thing with kind of social interaction and reward with them is letting them know that they're not alone, especially with pharmaceuticals and medical conditions. It can be kind of an isolating thing. Most people find their way to us through their optometrist, their ophthalmologist, but people are also finding us through Google Ads. So we're really trying to make sure that by building brand loyalty, we're making sure that there's also a community that's established.
Gotcha.
So that people are coming in and they're kind of continuing to have the conversation with us. We're constantly educating our consumer. I think a lot of what we do is really just education, either around the product, around different conditions that our product helps. But again, it's kind of building that community within them and giving them the information that they need where it's easily accessible.
Got it. Yeah. And the idea that you get affirmation from this community that you've built this concept of social reward is super interesting. I want to touch for a few minutes on how we measure this, right? So emotion are biological principles, but how do we quantitatively measure the outcomes? So, Marianne, do you want to talk us through some of the principles you use to measure the success, or what quantitative metrics you're looking at to measure these programs that you're working on?
Sure. So one of the toughest ones to measure is the B2B space, because sometimes that buy cycle is really long. I mean, it can be years before someone's really ready to take an action. So we can't just look at opens and clicks, right?
Yeah.
We can't just look at cha-ching at the register, right? We have to look at something bigger than that. So we take a more holistic view of the data. So when we're sending campaigns, for example, we're not just looking at opens and clicks. We're looking at unsubscribe rates. We're looking looking at the subscribe rate to a newsletter. When it comes to the rest of the marketing program, how does an action affect other things? If we're running digital ads, if we are using organic social, what do website visits look like? You have to look at it holistically, because especially when you're looking at some of these quantitative measures, loyalty is not one point. Loyalty is a lot of points along the cycle, finding them where they're at and making sure you're getting that touch in where they need it.
Gotcha. And I love the idea that we've evolved beyond clicks and opens as the primary metric for measuring success of these campaigns. It's really helpful. Nick, so quantitative metrics for measuring. We had a conversation here. You described your approach as non-traditional, your organization's approach as
Completely non-traditional.
Could you bring that to life for us?
Yeah, I mean, for us, our biggest thing is just listen and engage with our audiences. You know, we want them to ask us questions. We want them to challenge us, and we want to challenge them in return. What did you enjoy? What do you remember the most? What works? What doesn't work? And I think all of those just keep building, and we know they're listening to us, and they trust us, and then we in return are listening to them and building bigger and better, and hopefully making it more memorable to have that return, because some audiences may come once or twice, and we're fortunate enough to have some audience members return to us hundreds of times year over year. So, and they all matter, every single one, no matter how many times.
Of course, I remember you shared that with us when we were talking about this yesterday. So some of your customers will literally come back dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of times, because of the experiences that you've.
And we will always listen to them and what they have to tell us.
Great.
Yeah.
Amazing. So that was covering our first reflections on the emotion behind the drivers of loyalty and how we think about measuring. And I think what's clear is that customer loyalty programs come in a lot of different forms, right? We've got three very diverse, eclectic approaches here. So it's great we've got a lot of different perspectives, but we've got some questions from our audience. I think it's a good time to take the first one. So I'm going to read it off the big screen over there. Now, what we've got here, if you're competing against larger brands who can outspend you, what are some of the cost-effective ways to build an emotional connection with customers? It's a great question. Who wants to field that?
I can. I mean, again, being in the space that I'm in, we do have a few competitor brands that are owned by much larger conglomerate companies. So their budgets are far superior to ours. We're a very small company. So we are constantly trying to combat this. And I think some of the easiest ways that we're able to do it is kind of that omni-channel marketing.
Right.
Really just pulling in different types of content from different channels. So if we're doing influencer marketing, we will leverage that in our email content. Customer testimonials is a great way. There's so much inherent trust, which again, brand loyalty, but really leveraging different testimonials that we get either on our website, on our Amazon listings, just weaving those into our communications to help a new consumer try and establish a connection with us, but also pull the trigger and purchase a product.
Gotcha. Small but mighty is the phrase we use.
Scrappy.
Yeah. Scrappy. Amazing. So, Marianne, any thoughts?
I think that it's not just about marketing. I think that it's also, and I say this as a marketer, it's also about the customer's experience with your brand, right? So from the time they're curious to the time they're talking to sales to the time after purchase and they're dealing with your customer service team, that whole brand loyalty doesn't come from one point in the cycle. Brand loyalty is a journey, and it comes from all those touch points. So you can't market your way through loyalty, right? You have to think of it the whole company experience for someone.
Yeah, it's a company endeavor, right? That's a great point. We've got another question here. So, how do you leverage your social media pages to give this sense of loyalty to your followers who will hopefully turn into loyal customers? So they've latched onto your social profile. How do you engender and turn them into loyal customers? Any thoughts?
Sure. I think for us, this goes back to the emotion and memory, where much of our audience follows along to see new things coming. And in return, we question them and we were like, what is your favorite memory? Why do you engage with our content? What drew you to this experience? Or remind us of your favorite memory. And, you know, the questions that any social media can ask. If you were to come with someone, who would it be? And in return, we hope that people don't, need to follow the press reviews or any star rating, where when you get real life stories and you can connect with them and you can share that with friends and family, that's where we hopefully can find more audience to keep word of mouth growing, especially.
Got it. That's a great answer.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Or should we move on to the next question? Okay.
I think you covered it.
You nailed that answer, Nick. Okay, so I think final question before we move into the next section. What's your biggest tip in building community for a B2B organization?
Oh, you want to take that one?
I think you got that.
Okay. Yeah. So when you think of B2B, you don't think of community, right? You think of I got to do my job, I got to get it done. But at the same time, let's go back to that human equation. There's humans doing the job.
Yep.
Humans need human support. Can I talk about the Mailchimp Partner Program?
Of course you can.
Okay. So as a Mailchimp partner, that's very much a B2B interaction, right? Like we're businesses, running businesses, we're working with Mailchimp as a piece of software that we leverage with our customers. Having a community of other partners who do what I do is really important because sometimes I'll encounter a problem that I haven't had before and someone else has, and you can get that support. So the idea that support isn't always just from your customer service team, is a great way for B2B organizations to sort of leverage that sense of community and the loyalty to that brand. Because when I get that support from other people who face the same challenges that I have, I am much more inclined to stay with that product because I know I will have a team behind me at any point in time that I need it.
Got it.
So.
Amazing, and great plug for the partner program. Okay, so amazing questions from the audience. Thank you. Keep them coming, please. These are really challenging our panel, but also giving us some great insights, I think. So we're going to move on to the next section of the discussion, and we're going to explore best practices, so do's and don'ts. Now, sadly, unfortunately, there is no silver bullet, right? There is no template that we can overlay against any organization that works for everybody all of the time. So let's talk about some of the things you've learned, best practices, watch outs, non-negotiables, if you like. And it'd be good if we reflect on your experiences and share what you consider to be the primary do's when it comes to customer loyalty strategies. I'm going to stick with you, Marianne, having answered the last question so well.
Okay, so the worst 5 words in marketing, let's send an email blast. Worst 5 words in marketing. So the things you should do is you should start with, first of all, understanding your brand and who you are, right? If you don't know who you are in the world, then how can you interact with anyone else in it? And that's like, as a human being, you should be able to do that, but as an organization, you should as well, right? We call that mission and vision, right? You then need to understand who you're talking to. That's your customer. And you'll hear the term personas, you'll hear archetypes, right? But basically representations of who you're trying to interact with. That's the first do, because if you don't know who you are, then you don't know what you want to say. And if you don't know who you're talking to, you're not going to understand how they're going to receive it. So for us, the most important do is we're not sending an email blast. We are going to have a conversation online. We are going to establish a relationship with a target customer who we know that we will appeal to because we know who we are and we know what they need.
Got it. Super helpful, thank you. Nick, what's your number one do? Sorry, Joe. Got Nick on my brain.
I think the biggest one for me, because our content can be so clinical and so cold and just frankly boring.
Yeah.
But really what we found a lot of success in is what I call edutainment. So kind of blending that educational component, but it needs some sort of like a sexy wow factor, right?
Right.
No one's gonna open an email and read a whole thing about, I mean, I could bore you guys to death with the amount of eye conditions that I know now. But there's a way to make it engaging and fun. And so again, kind of going back to like leveraging that omni-channel content, really like we have some great doctors, docfluencers I call them, that we partner with that can lend their credibility and their expertise and their knowledge to us in talking about these different conditions, about our product, how it can benefit people. So again, just giving our loyal consumer just a little bit more information, but in a bit of a different way. No one wants to sit there and comb through a 12-page email about yada, yada, yada. No one's gonna care. But if it's something short and snappy and entertaining, you can make anything entertaining. That's the reality of it.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you come up with edutainment? Is that your term?
I'm not putting the trademark on it, but.
So Nick, we've talked about do's. I'd also like to talk about don'ts. And you said something really compelling when we talked about talking down to your audience, not talking down to your audience. Can you bring that to life for us?
Of course. We we never want to talk down to our audience. You know, we want them to communicate, we want them to grow, and they're what fosters our community. They're what brings back all of our loyalist guests, and so nothing that they question should be wrong. You know, we want to make sure it's a VIP experience for every single one, and we also have to understand that maybe that experience isn't for that one person, but hopefully something in our world is, and we will invite them back, we will communicate with them, we will just want to make sure that everything that they experience is in a positive light, and just ensuring that they're heard.
Yeah.
Simple.
Beautiful again. Marianne, any other don'ts? So don't send an email blast.
Don't blast anyone,
Don't blast
ever.
anything.
No one wants
Yeah.
to be blasted. You don't want to be blasted. None of us want to be blasted, right? You know, I would rather lean on the positive side and say, have an inbox conversation, right? Have an opportunity to dialogue with your audience. Listen to what Nick's saying here about, like, you know, making sure that you're listening to what they're saying. Do listen and do respond, even though for you, it might be 10,000 emails going out at once. For the person whose inbox it lands in, and SMS, it's living on their phone, that's a very personal space for people. So respect that personal space. Don't abuse the right they've given you to appear in that personal space for them.
Got it. And going back to your edutainment philosophy, Joe, when we were talking previously, you said if you can't be impactful, don't do anything at all, right? So leaning on Marianne's principle of don't send a blast, you feel like if you can't see anything impactful, you'd prefer just to not do anything.
Yeah, I think it's just being mindful and tactful with how you're communicating. I mean, if there's dead space, you know, you don't always have to fill it, right? And I think, again, the position I inherited, we weren't sending a ton of communications. We didn't see a ton of movement, a ton of revenue coming through email. But we've now flipped that on its head. We're now we have two different audiences. We communicate with doctors, directly with consumers. And I will say, like, those are two very different groups that we have to communicate directly with. Two different tonalities, tones of voice, everything. So it really is just making sure that we are being very mindful with what we're sending out. We're not just going to send something to send it. We want to make sure, because again, it is that personal space that people have, that it is something that's worthwhile and that they will find hopefully engaging, but also beneficial.
So be impactful, don't blast, educate, don't patronize or talk down to your audience. This is all great stuff. The report talks about reward. I'm going to make sure I get my stats right here. So 64% of 18 to 34-year-olds expect brands to reward them. So can you provide examples of how you've rewarded customers and what was the payoff when you did that? I'm going to look at you, Nick.
Awesome. That goes all the way back to us listening to them. When they give us their feedback, we ensure that we are responding to it and we've been so fortunate enough to create specific events for our return guests. We've held roundtables, we've held special events and parties, specialized performances of our shows, all for these return guests, and that has been fortunate enough to create incredible communities across Reddit, Discord, online platforms, and really have cultivated an entire family. So we feel fortunate enough to be giving them these events and opportunities as like a mini reunion or small get-togethers, and yeah, it's been so much fun, because that's where then we have our opportunity to hear more from them and what they expect from us.
Got it. And if you have this thriving community, then I guess this becomes almost self-sustaining, right?
They're part of my team,
Yeah.
I'd say.
Amazing. Marianne, any comments on reward? So how you've rewarded customers and what you've seen as a result?
So I guess what I would say in terms of like reward is loyalty isn't a punch card.
Right.
Right? So loyalty is not just I get a free thing. Yes, sometimes it is. And I've never had somebody complain when they get a coupon or they get something for free. But think outside of that, right? Because sometimes a reward is a better experience. Sometimes a reward is getting to interact with people maybe at Mailchimp, right? You know, just having that a better experience with the brand is part of a reward. So if you're trying to build loyalty, don't think that you can punch card your way through it. It works for a while, but as a business, it's not a profitable venture to continue to give away product all the time. So think about other ways that you can give your customers what they're looking for and give them a better experience with your brand.
Got it. I'm one of those experience as just being heard, right? As Nick was saying, acknowledged, listened to, affirmed.
Right.
So changing gears a little bit, I'm going to linger on you for the moment, if that's okay. Because you mentioned in the discussion earlier that loyalty is a whole company exercise, right? Creating this amazing customer experience and making it not just a marketing problem. And one of those exercises is making the whole engagement with your customer as painless as possible. One of the key insights from the loyalty report was a frictionless experience being pivotal to the customer experience. So can you talk us through about the removal of friction, why it's important in any experience you can bring to bear?
Sure. So when you have friction, we'll take something very simple that most people can relate to, which is a sign-up form, right? So you have a sign-up form for SMS or email or whatever, and you know that the more information you ask from someone, the less likely they are to fill out that form. So you have to weigh out how much data you want to ask, right? Because I want the sign-up, but also, and especially for B2B, this plays in a lot. I also have to give my customer or my prospect a personalized experience. And so when you weigh out the benefits of personalization against the cost of friction, you have to determine which one's more valuable at a certain stage. There's been some studies, and the studies have shown that, at least in certain spaces, you can ask 3 or 5 questions. Weirdly, 4 does not do as well. I don't know why. But so, if really and truly you want to have zero friction, just ask one question. But if you're in B2B, you really should know their company name, because that's important. And you also probably, if you have multiple product lines, you want to understand which product lines they're most interested in. And so asking a couple of qualifier questions might be a little bit higher friction, but the payoff on the personalization side is much higher. So you want to weigh that. And again, I would say test it, because you don't want to just make an assumption. But try to understand that the value of the data, that first-party data that person is giving directly to you to get a customized communication. And when I lean back onto B2B, remember, I'm not signing up for this because I want, free chocolate, right? I'm signing up for this because I have to buy something for my company, or I have to do research for my company. So I really do want to get the things that are only relevant to me. So ask enough qualifying questions that you don't add friction, but provide personalization that's important to your customer.
Got it. Well, you might want free chocolate.
You might want free chocolate.
Right.
That's true.
Joe, so frictionless experience, removing friction from the experience. Any thoughts you want to share?
I think the biggest thing that we've seen is, for me, it's twofold. I've been doing email marketing for a little over a year and a half, so I'm a newbie here. But what we've seen just in the time that I've been kind of spearheading all of our different email marketing campaigns, automations and consistency. Those have been the 2 biggest things that have helped us. Whether it's a abandoned cart or we have, because our products are a little bit nuanced, they do require some explanation. Every time certain products are purchased, people 2 to 3 days after we've set the trigger, it just flows into their inbox. Here's how to use this. Here's some extra resources, which again, it's educating, but also giving the consumer a little bit more than what they've purchased, right? So it's kind of that freebie add-on, but it's more of a good takeaway and, again, informative information that they need.
Gotcha. Continuing on the theme of emotion, impact, customer experience, how can our audience, the marketers out there, infuse emotion, especially positive emotion, into that customer journey? So we're trying to find the balance between personalization and friction and automation, but we want them to feel like they're having a positive experience, positive emotions. Joe, you were talking about reinforcing their decision along this experience to give them that positive vibe. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, again, most people are finding our product through their doctor, right? So, okay, my doctor's telling me I have to go buy something. But for us, it's no, you're making a really good step and a really great investment. That's what we like to say. Again, in our area, we play in a very small sandbox. Out of all the products available, we are a more premium product. So how do we differentiate ourselves, right? So just reiterating that you've made this great decision for yourself. Here's all these great tips that you can apply to your new treatment plan. And just kind of, again, giving some more information to them. I think our biggest thing is just education, information.
Gotcha. Okay. Helping everybody reinforce their decision by affirmation.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Marianne, how to infuse positive emotion into the experience? Any thoughts?
Okay, so I've been doing this more than a year and a half.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back to, remember 2020? I know you don't really want to, but like bear with me for a minute. So 2020, stuff happened. And a lot of stuff shut down. And a lot of customers had really tough experiences. A lot of organizations had tough experiences. We work with a company, a textile manufacturer in Spain. We actually work with their American office. They're called Recasons USA. And they had a really big problem with that boats couldn't ship over from Europe that had their supplies. At the same time, the textiles they sell are used for awning and marine industry, which had a high demand in this area. So a lot of their customers were really, really worried about how they were going to keep their businesses running. So terrible news to deliver. We mostly did not have good news. I mean, it was very, very difficult time for most of us. So what we did is we really pivoted the message into the most positive thing we could do. And sometimes that was, listen, we don't have an answer, but here's the phone number of the general manager.
Right.
Call him anytime. Our customer support team is here. Here's how you get a hold of them to get an update on your particular order. We leveraged the strength of the brand as one that was very customer service oriented and one that was very dedicated to their customers' success, to help their customers, their B2B customers, understand that, like, listen, it's terrible for everyone. We're going to make it as least terrible as possible for you, and know that we are here for you. And when we came out on the other side, a lot of the responses that we got were by fostering a very positive customer service experience, by using our marketing communications to leverage the, listen, we know you're going through this, here's some suggestions, here's some things you can do. The response we got was a lot of loyalty. A lot of their distributors and a lot of their OEMs were really happy with the performance as compared to dealing with a lot of the other brands that they dealt with. I mean, really, they wanted their fabric, but in lieu of that, at least they had a positive brand experience, and then were happy to stay with the brand afterwards when supplies came back in.
Got it. And I love your phrase, play to your strengths. And as an organization, you need to know what your strengths are, right? Are you really clear on what you are great at, what your superpower is?
Yeah.
And if you know that, you can not just make the best of a situation, but really inflect positive outcomes from a bad situation. So I think the answers to those questions underscore the fact that there is no one thing. There's lots of things that the answers have been really diverse and super helpful. I think it's a good time to go back to our audience who have been piling in with the questions. So here we go, the first one. Do you have any best practices for creating inclusive communities for audiences that are neurodivergent or disabled? Look at you, Nick.
Yeah, and it's not something that I think was the main goal.
Yep.
We have just been fortunate enough to allow people to give us the feedback, to understand it. In our newest experience, Life and Trust, one of the hugest focuses was just accessibility. I think so many experiences of theater and art sometimes can just be, this is the product. But for us, we took it as, this is someone's capability, how can we make our product for them? We have focused on photosensitivity, audio accessibility, just physical accessibility, creating spaces for people who can all attend these experiences. And truly, then they did the work for us, because that inclusivity is just an amazing experience. And we don't need to, promote that, or we just need to celebrate that, because for us, everyone should be able to experience the theater and the art that we get to create.
Such a great answer. So what I took away there was, don't just solve it, embrace it, right? That's amazing. So I'm going to lean into the next question. There's a camera in the way. So what are some signs that help you know when it's time to refresh or update a loyalty program? Who wants to field that one?
I think when you're just kind of feeling things are stagnant. I mean, for us, it's kind of best practice to go back in, and anything that we have set, whether it be automation or anything, we're just going through and revisiting the content, because stuff changes so quickly. I mean, don't even factor in like social media and all the different trends that are out there, but just the way that we communicate with each other constantly is evolving. So we're going back, we're updating our creative, we're making sure branding has been, there's a slight tweak here, we have to make sure that that's referenced every which way. There's a new social platform, let's make sure that that little icon is added on every single email footer. So there's a lot of stuff that I think just by nature of habit, you should go in and constantly update and check. But you'll also, you can see it's reflected in like your click rates and everything else. You can see the data behind it and you'll know.
Yeah, we talked earlier about what we're measuring to judge how our programs are performing. So you can see when something is becoming stagnant just by looking at the same data, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
One more, I think, before we head into the next section. So can you share any strategies you've used to build a deep evangelist base? So we talked right at the beginning about how loyalty drives evangelism. Any thoughts? You look like you were ready for that question.
We've done a few of those.
Yeah.
First of all, they tend to raise their hand.
Right.
So start with the people that are raising their hands. And then sort of dig into, again, you've got to be looking at your data. You've got to be looking at it regularly. We encourage clients to take a look at their programs at very least once a year. Most of the clients who work with us, they sort of lean on us to do that, every quarter or every half year. Where are things at? What's the measurement look like? Are we getting to where we need to be? Start with people that raise their hands. Look at the people who are your best customers and start reaching out to them. You need to build the program. Like, what are you going to do for them as an evangelist? Because they're going to be giving you time, they're going to be giving you brain space, and they're usually happy to do that. But you need to give them some kind of reward, whether that's promoting their social media accounts, making them a showcase on your website, whatever it is. What are you going to do for them? Understand what you're giving them, and then start to identify the people who are the most likely to participate in that.
Got it. And the idea that people in these communities are raising their hand, they are volunteering to be evangelists for your brand. Yeah. These are the folks that might go back 300 or 400 times to watch the same experience, right?
We'd hope.
Okay, more great questions. Thank you to the audience for setting those threes. I'm gonna move on to the final part of the discussion. The final part already. It's flown by, right? So this is audience takeaways. So marketing success season is here to give our audience practical insights, tips that they can apply to their own strategies. And we've got the holiday season coming up, so it'd be great if we can share a few leave behinds, if you like, with our audience and get tactical about how to create and utilize loyalty strategies. So let's talk about some practical steps that our audience members can begin to take, starting with technology innovations. So Nick, you are an advocate of SMS, so love to hear your thoughts on SMS.
SMS was something we've been dying to get our hands on. I actually watched a beta session with Mailchimp and was like, all right, how do we integrate it? Recently, our newest show, Life and Trust, is our biggest endeavor we've encountered, and we said, how do we put this as part of our launch? We started up our website, lead gen, collected phone numbers, said, we'll get to you. We didn't know what we were going to do with it, but it had to be part of the launch. We launched the first message, super simple. Welcome to our Eternal Rewards program. Your application is under review. Within seconds, I had my app open. We had hundreds of responses, just people who want to engage that were either were so excited or who were playing the game with us of, perfect, is there anything my application needs to adjust? And we were so shocked, and we were like, this is engagement. We weren't selling anything, we weren't pushing anything. And we continued that for a few weeks, and we did a message to help build our story and our world. And that's hugely what we love to do, is just the story building. And when we got to the time we launched our ticketing, we were said, these are our most loyalist, dedicated audience. We want them to be the first. So the night before, we sent out a message that said, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., you're the first. We'll see you there. We all laughed that night. We're like, what if 4 people show up? What are we going to do? Do we give them a coffee? And we were so fortunate that the next morning we had hundreds of our loyalist guests be the first in line, who had no information about when, how much, what they were even getting, but they just trusted us enough that they were that excited to be there. And I'm pretty sure it brought tears to our team's eyes because that's what we do. And all thanks to SMS, and it was so simple. So that's what made my life a change.
Another cool story, and I imagine there's thousands of people in our audience who wish they had a customer base like yours.
Yeah.
And I love the idea that you just embraced it, right? Let's try SMS.
Yep.
See what happens. It's very cool. Marianne, innovation, technology innovations.
I don't know that it's an innovation per se, but I think there are some technologies that not a lot of people are taking advantage of, and they should be.
Okay.
And I call it the gift that keeps on giving, and it's automation. Because once you create an automation, it will run in perpetuity as long as you need it to, continuing to communicate on your behalf. And when you have a million things to do as a marketer, you really don't want to have to worry about, do I have to send another email out to those people? Like, automation just runs for you. And when you're running it for a long time, you'll get results where you can see, hey, this email does really well, or this series of emails and SMS gets really great results. So you can start to look at data and take the most high-performing pieces and work those into even better automation. I have some clients that have automations that runs for 2 years. Wow. As I said, in the B2B space, that decision-making can be really, really long. Drip, 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 drip over the course of 2 years. The brand is always on top of mind. When someone has a question, they know they can reach you. And overall, the experience is one where you're not invading their inbox. They can always unsubscribe at any time, but you're providing them with the relevant information at a time that they're going to need it. And you don't have to do it every single day because it's done.
Well, it's using existing technology that is innovating all the time,
right,
and getting the best out of it, right? And I can trump your 2 years with my 10 years. A customer in the UK who has a 10-year period from subscribe to first purchase.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's
amazing.
A long time.
High value purchase, but still 10 years. Well, Joe, thoughts on technology innovations?
I know AI is like the topic that everyone is talking about.
Yeah.
I'm controversial. It's definitely useful. I don't fully rely on it.
Right.
There are so many great AI innovations that are out there, but I'm frankly a team of one doing email marketing, influencer marketing, social media marketing, all the creative content generation. So there's a lot that goes into it, and it does tap on your creativity a lot.
Right.
So I leverage AI, especially through Mailchimp, for I have an idea of what I want to say in my subject line, and I just can't quite form the words, or maybe I'm just brain dead because I've been doing this all day. So it really is helpful to just plug in what you are thinking, a little bit of a brain dump, have it rework it for you, and it spits out things that are so much more eloquent or just more succinct. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, is just getting to be more concise. And so that's leveraging the AI features has been really helpful.
Right.
I don't fully rely on them. Other people can, but I think just knowing how to use those tools is gonna make your life so much easier and just streamline things so much more.
Got it. And we often talk about AI as elevating smart humans, right? Scaling humans.
Yeah.
And we had a marketing conference in London a few months ago where one of our panelists said, if you're not leveraging AI, somebody else is, right? So think about it as ensuring you retain your competitive advantage as well as deploying scale. I'm going to stick with you, Joe, because it's prediction time. So emerging trends in loyalty, when we think about customer loyalty, what should we keep an eye on? Any predictions to make, or any predictions we should use as a guide?
I've kind of already tapped on it, but for me, just in my own life as a consumer, again, I work mainly in e-commerce, but I think the just ability to leverage your omni-channel content. There are so many more brands, whether they be fashion retail, skincare, beauty, whatever it is. They're all really leaning into influencers again. There was a whole wave of influencing, then it kind of died, now it's back again.
Right.
But if you're already doing work in other avenues and other channels, you're spending the money, make the most of it. So really, I think just kind of leveraging your social content, leveraging any sort of partnerships you have going on, making sure that you are putting your money to its best use. That's something that I've seen kind of slowly becoming more and more of a thing, and I think it's going to continue.
Gotcha. Okay, that's a prediction. I'm
Yeah.
gonna call it that. Okay. Marianne, prediction time.
I I don't know how much of a prediction it is because I think it's pretty well known, but I think personalization is big. And, you know, if you think about, you know, rewind a few years when we could still use cookies. Wasn't that fun? We could know everything about everybody. It was so creepy. And consumers don't like it, right? So that's why there have been laws in place. That's why there's been best practices in place to stop a lot of that. But that said, I still, as a consumer or even as a B2B buyer, I still want to get the information that's relevant for me. I might not want you tracking me around the internet through every Google search and Amazon purchase, but I also don't want you sending me random information that has, you know, no relation to my day-to-day life. So I think personalization is the trend, but personalization based on first-party data that you receive from the customer, or even from data that is relevant to, for example, you know, you attend a conference or you're partnered with another organization, and so you understand that, hey, these people are interested in this information, these two products work together, we want to introduce it to you. That kind of stuff is great because it makes sure that as the receiver of the communications, whatever it is, I'm getting data that I care about, I'm getting information that I care about based on data that you know is true and you know is real.
Well, so I don't think you should discount it as a prediction. So I've been in e-commerce marketing for longer than I care to remember. Personalization's been the holy grail for a long time. Now, I think with the advent of AI and where technology has evolved, it's becoming a reality for marketers. Personalization at scale is more achievable than it was even a few years ago, I think. So,
and it's not just first name, right?
Yeah.
Like first name is the very basic thing. Please get the first name, right? But also, you know, your interests, your activity, your behaviors as I interact with your brand on social media with ads, as throughout my entire experience with your brand. That's good data, and I think a lot of organizations ignore that part of the data, and so then they don't know how to personalize. It's like, well, you have the data, you just have to collect it.
Got it. Thank you. So Nick, we're into the special sauce conversation now, trade secrets. You don't have to give any away. But the audience is going to try and duplicate or learn from some of the,
Good luck.
the answers we have. Any actionable strategies, anything that the audience could take away tomorrow and start implementing?
The biggest thing we've learned over these years is just we can't rest on our laurels, and to make sure that we're not going stale.
Right.
Because why would I want to come back to something that I've seen over and over again? That's not changing. We've been fortunate enough, you know, we will update whether it's lighting, sound, scents, costumery, stories that we're telling. All of this has been so fortunate enough because then if you haven't been in a few years, you need to come back, you need to engage with it again, and that then hits the memory, hits any of those sights and sounds that just trigger why you love the product and why we love our audiences. And we're just going to continue to evolve and grow and just not staying stale.
I mean, as a special secret sauce, don't stay stale.
Yep.
It's hard to say, but it's great advice. So we've talked a lot about how we might measure loyalty. What do we look at to gauge how successful our programs are being? What do you feel is the ultimate payoff? How do you know that you have a loyal customer base? Marianne's smiling because she has a great phrase.
Cha-ching! I mean, if you have really loyal customers, it's going to show at checkout or at the purchase point or at the sales contract signing, whatever it is. I mean, companies have to pay my agency to do this work. If we can't show return on investment, we're not going to keep working. I'm happy to say we've been doing this for a couple decades now, so we must know a little bit. But generally, you know, the long term, the whole point of this, you know, do I love marketing? Of course I do. But I also don't do it for the love. I do it for a reward on the other end, right? So if you're getting sales, if you're signing contracts, if you're, you know, getting new subscribers, if you're moving people through the funnel, right, and getting them to buy your products or your services, it's working.
Yeah.
Right?
And as we said right at the start, loyal customers tend to spend more.
Yeah.
And they're harder to be prized away by competitors, right? Joe, you talked about upsell as one of your primary payoffs for loyalty. Can you talk us through?
Yeah, so we have, you know, a suite of 5 products that we offer. Our main one is a daily lid and lash cleanser, just in case anyone cares. But
Okay.
to really maximize, you know, the efficacy of that product, we do have companion products. So, you know, we're constantly communicating to our customers, again, the upsell, but you bought this, you might also be interested in this. That's where I think a lot of these product recommendations we've been able to integrate through our Shopify have been really helpful, because it just kind of cuts out the middleman and it automatically says, here you go, and it isn't automatic upsell. But I think another thing for us too has just, again, been that consistency. We are sending weekly emails just on a regular cadence to both of our audiences that we have. And on our direct-to-consumer side, we've been able to increase our average monthly sales, I think, a little over 250% just every month in this past year. So just having a consistent kind of cadence, and again, making sure that we're upselling as much as we can, because working in e-commerce, that is the bottom line, is you have to have a repeat customer.
And we talked about the idea that loyalty is a function of trust. And if you have built trust in your customer base, be it doctors or consumers, then they will trust you to add that additional. They will trust that that product is the right thing for them.
Exactly.
Outside of the one they've already added to their basket. That's a really good point. Nick, any thoughts on the payoff of loyalty?
Yeah, we have a huge part of that trust because of our audience and the communities they've built. We ensure that we know where the trust lies. They have these communications where they are inspired by what they see, and that's always the goal, is for them to keep the conversation going, for them to continue the world building. But we know that's their world. We're not going to go in there and post advertisements or digital ads or things like that. We respect their boundaries and they respect ours, and that's why I think they can cultivate, they can continue to grow, and they can continue spreading the word for us in their way, and we are super appreciative.
Amazing. Such a good vibe from all of your answers. It's great. So we're going to go to the final few questions from our lovely audience. So here comes the first one. Do you have any tips for how a small company can create enough different kinds of content to incentivize customers to engage with multiple platforms? Okay, always a challenge for small companies with limited resources. Who fancies that?
That's something that we struggled with a lot. Again, our company, I think, is under 25 employees. It's very small. So we've leveraged doing giveaways has been a very helpful thing. There are, different platforms and websites you can do those through, but leveraging that through your email, through your social, doing social-only giveaways and marketing that through your email campaigns, just kind of doing that cross-promotional content has been really helpful for us. And I think, just making sure that you are being tactful with what you're doing. No one wants to be inundated with anything, but some of the built-in features that Mailchimp has, the pop-up form has been really great. We now ask people when they first visit our website to enter in their email, their first name, and their phone number, so they can opt in for SMS. But by doing so, if they sign up for SMS, they then automatically get a 10% discount code. So there is that kind of transactional component as well, but there's some innate features that are already available to you that you can just activate.
Gotcha. Okay. Anyone else got any thoughts on?
I think we covered it.
Joe nailed it. Right. Okay, next question. So how to drive referrals for service-based companies? So it's an interesting question. So what are the tactics or methodologies or strategies to drive referrals? If we can, talk about service-based companies.
Yeah, we work with a lot of service-based companies.
Yeah.
So again, the whole spectrum of loyalty, right? Once you get these advocates, those advocates should be good for driving referrals. You can try those referral programs. I will say that in the scope of loyalty, giving somebody 10% off their next purchase is not a great way to get a referral.
Right.
Building a brand advocate is an amazing way to get a referral. Creating a community of your users, of your clients, of your, whatever, whether you're a service or product, it doesn't necessarily matter. Creating community where people are excited about your brand drives referrals. Right. I think that you can do influencer marketing, that can certainly help. But overall, don't worry about the referral. Worry about the loyalty. Worry about delighting your customers over and over and over again and making them brand advocates. The referrals will come.
Got it. So referrals can and should be an organic byproduct of building amazing experiences. All the things we talked about will lead to referrals.
Yeah.
It's great. Thank you, Marianne. I want to get through as many questions as we can in the time. So how do you balance tapping into customer information to build loyalty and whilst respecting their privacy? So we talked about this earlier, personalization is super important, but how do we get the information? Any thoughts on finding that balance?
I think for us, we've been fortunate because there's a level of communication that they want to share with us, and having these events and roundtables where they will tell us, you know, oh, my birthday's coming up, I want to celebrate it here, or this will be my 200th show. Those give us the opportunity for us to personalize and remember, they're coming this night, you know what, we want to get them a handwritten note, we want to ensure that they have a glass of champagne or bubbles on us, and really just make that evening special for them. And it just going back all the way to the listening and taking the note and giving them the opportunity to tell us, and just ensuring they know we're listening to them.
We talk about this idea of the value exchange, right? You provide value, they will provide you information about themselves to get that constant virtuous circle of experience. Right, last question. Let's see how many of these we can get through. What are your top 3 tips for inspiring emotion in an email? We might not get 3 each, but Marianne?
I mean, that could be a whole session in and of itself, okay? It could be. I will tell you that I have one client that I work with. She sells safaris, Tet safaris. She's lovely. And she gets a lot of emotion in her email because people who are on her list have been on a safari before. And so they're getting emails that remind them of the safari they took, whether it's the camps or the photos, or just even with her, the conversations they've had. So using what you know in the past experience with a customer is the best way to extract a little emotion and get some result.
Memory.
Yeah.
Right, it was in the report.
It was.
Time for one more tip, probably. Nick?
I think we also, coming from a theatrical industry, know that nothing is forever. So we also try to hope that they can get that, and that this could be their one opportunity. And if it's that one that makes it very special, you know, whether it be photos or something of a quote and something to stick with them, we want to make sure that, you know, they can experience it. And hopefully we can forever, but the tough part of this business, and just giving them that last chance, because who knows when it'll be gone.
Got it. Thank you. We're at an end. That flew by. Thank you so much. And again, it's been a fascinating discussion. Really appreciate all the insights, all the inputs. I hope you all found this helpful. You can download both the Science of Loyalty and the Strategic Playbook if you go to the Documents tab right now. The Science of Loyalty dives into all the research. The Playbook will give you 12 loyalty tactics that you can deploy as we get to the holiday season. A big thank you to our audience, and the questions were all great, searching, compelling, and we'd love it if you could fill out our 4-question survey afterwards. And finally, thank you once again to Joe, to Marianne, to Nick. Great, thank you for your time. I'm Jim Rudel, it's been a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of Marketing Success.
That was a thought-provoking discussion. A big thank you to our moderator, Jim, and all of the panelists. What a tremendous way for us to close out day 1 of Marketing Success Season 2024. We hope you've been inspired and excited by the topics so far. And thank you so much for being an engaged audience and enhancing these sessions with your questions. Okay, let's look at day 2. Our day kicks off at 10 a.m. with a keynote from best-selling author and marketing advisor, Robert Rose. He's going to unpack how focusing on customization can help impact your ROI for the better. After that, we have an exciting skill builder session about SMS marketing, and I'll be chatting with Jamal Miller. He's Mailchimp's Senior Director of Product Marketing, about the key takeaways from Marketing Success Season to help your upcoming holiday season be the best yet. Everyone, have a great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow.